My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. Today is Saturday, October 30th, 2021, and we are at the World Center Marriott in Orlando. Okay, and Miss, what is your name?
Penny Ann Young.
Penny Ann Young. And Penny, when's your birthday?
August 12th, 1965.
Okay, and what city do you live in?
Right now, Belleville, Illinois.
Oh, okay. Wow, you traveled to get here today, huh?
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay, we're at this ATA, what is it, Airlift?
Airlift Tanker Association.
Okay, it's a convention
Yes, sir.
for Air Force personnel.
Yes.
Is that active duty and?
All branches.
Oh,
Branches of service, and also community partners for technologies.
oh, so it's not just the Air Force?
No, sir.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that. Okay, okay, cool, nice, very nice. No, just a second. Yeah. Where were you drafted or enlisted?
I enlisted.
What year was that?
That was actually 1982.
Uh-huh.
I went into delayed enlistment right before my senior year of high school.
And where were you?
I was in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, okay. And so you went straight in after school?
After high school.
After
yes.
high school, but you were in ROTC?
No, actually
No.
I wasn't. I went to a accelerated high school. I went through all the advanced courses and programs, and I just basically burned out.
Oh.
But I wanted to be productive
Right.
before going to college, so I have a fascination with fixing things. Airplanes just got to me. I wanted to be a pilot, but at that time in the 80s, if your vision wasn't perfect, you couldn't be a pilot.
Okay.
So I went into avionics instead, F-16 avionics and
Oh.
launch fighters.
Okay, and did you get a degree or a certification?
And surprisingly enough, I didn't go either path. I went a totally different direction into analysis at the end of the day, but yeah,
What kind of analysis?
maintenance data.
Ah,
So still
okay.
stay with maintenance, just left the flight line after a while.
Okay. So, where were you again when you went to service?
I joined in Baltimore, Maryland,
Okay, and so you joined there, and where did they ship you to for basic training?
went to Lackland,
Lackland Air Force Base,
Yes.
Texas. How long were you there?
forever. So, so yeah, you get this seat. You're going to be there for 6 weeks, they say.
Uh-huh.
They neglect to tell you weekends don't count. They neglect to tell you that when you leave a few days before Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving doesn't count, Christmas doesn't count, and New Year's doesn't count. So sometime around the second week of January, I finally got out of there.
Okay, you got my attention. When did you initially get there?
I got there November 22nd
Okay.
of 1983.
20 seconds, and you left January 1st?
No, January 9th.
January, okay. So that's 9 and 30. Okay, that's 39 days, and you went in when? November
November 22nd.
22nd.
Well, November 23rd, because my separation date was the 22nd.
4,
So
5. That was just over 7 weeks. Okay. I don't know if we're going to discuss basic training or not. I don't think we should. I'm getting a bad feeling about it. All right.
Let me just say, I showed up in basic training, and for the first time in forever, it snowed in San Antonio, Texas.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah.
it was cold though. Yeah.
It was
that
very
time of year.
cold.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
cold. Yes.
All right. So how were the instructors?
Very good. My lead TI,
Uh-huh.
she was a short little whippersnapper,
Right.
and her associate was a tall string bean of a guy. They didn't take no mess,
Right.
but again, it kept us in line, and they were very personable
Uh-huh.
when you were behaving.
When you were behaving.
When you were behaving.
Should I venture?
I was a good girl.
You were. Uh-huh.
I was a good girl.
Yeah, I've heard this story somewhere. Okay, so when you weren't a good girl, what was the retaliation on it to that extent?
Well, I
that event.
received no retaliation from my TIs, but there was one incident where we were just slightly late coming back from the rec center at night when we finally got to go out in the evenings. And although we would have made it back into the dorms on time, we happened to run into a chief who decided the appropriate thing to do was to have us pick up cigarette butts, which made us late, which got us locked out of our dorms. So
I remember those days. It's funny now.
It's very funny now, but it wasn't too funny at the time.
No, not at all.
But yeah.
What you doing out here?
Exactly.
Okay. Where do you think you're going?
Huh? Where you think you're going? Yeah. Are you late for something?
Right.
You know, you're like, and you got to stand there and, you know, be nice. But yeah, it's definitely a good lesson learned. Definitely a good lesson learned.
Okay. Before you went to tech school, did you go home on a break, or did you just go straight to tech school?
Everything was straight.
So where'd you go? Where did you go for tech school?
So I went into the F-16 avionics, integrated avionics and flight control systems maintenance. So we were Pop-Tarts. So I did 7 weeks at Lowry in Denver, Colorado.
Right.
And then I followed on immediately with the 7 weeks of field training detachment at Nellis Air Force Base. Yep. And then I went home.
And then you went home for a little break?
Went home for about 30 days or so.
Okay. So how was that tech school? How was it?
Tech school was interesting and annoying at the same time. Remember, I joined the service because I was tired of going to school and learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
So, yeah. But the good thing is most of the things that I learned in tech school were also things I'd already covered in high school.
Right.
So it was fairly easy for me to do. I will say I'm going to admit this on tape, y'all. I actually washed back 1 week because I failed my finals on one of my blocks because I fell asleep during the exam.
Why was that? Never mind. Okay, so let's not go too deep.
We're not gonna go too deep.
All right.
But yeah.
Okay, so.
I aced it the next time though.
Right. You got through it.
Got through it.
All right. And where was your first duty base?
First duty base was Torrejon Air Base, Spain.
Okay. How long were you there?
I was there for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I hated it. I didn't want to leave the United States for my first duty station, you know.
Yeah.
But best experiences ever.
What was so good about it?
Well, first of all, the whole new culture. You know, I was immersed in a new culture.
Culture shock, but it was positive.
Right. I studied Spanish in high school, so I had 4 years of Spanish under my belt, so I could kind of converse a little bit.
Right.
I never did get fluent because there was enough people who spoke English. Once I made an effort, they came back. But just getting into the cultures, I'm very adventurous. So when I got my driver's license, the first time I got to drive solo, I called my parents. I'd driven from Baltimore to New York.
Okay.
So I got to Spain. It was no different. As soon as I got a vehicle, I was on the road on my days off, meeting people and the culture. I never shopped at the commissary or the BX. I always shopped on the economy just so I could meet people.
Right.
And it was just lessons you just can't learn when you don't leave your country or your comfort zone.
Right.
So it was beautiful.
Right, right. So you were all for broadening your horizons.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Definitely.
Okay, so how was the food?
Oh, delicious. So good.
Too funny.
So good. So glad I had that young teen metabolism going on.
That what?
The young teen metabolism.
Oh.
You know,
You can eat everything.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so good right now.
Right?
But back then, it was no problem.
You don't have to remind me. Okay, you're bringing up some things that are being very disruptive to this conversation.
I'm sorry. This is supposed to be a nice.
Don't lie. You're not sorry. Okay. All right. Let's try to stay on task.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So how long were you stationed in Torrejon?
I was there for 2 years, June to June.
And everything was good? The economy, the officers, your peers, the job?
Pretty much.
Okay.
There were some setbacks. Well, I'm very odd. My recruiter actually tried to talk me out of enlisting. He said to me, Penny, you have a mind of your own. You know how to think for yourself. So you don't need structure. The military is not for you. And I said, but I want to fix planes. I want to fix planes. And I can't lie, within about 2 months of being at my first duty station, I fully understood what he meant.
Right.
So it was a mindset of me. I had to let go of some of my individualism.
You had to change.
I had to fake the funk. I won't say I changed, but I learned how to properly maintain, in most cases, my opinion versus the,
Well, you adapted.
mission opinion.
You adapted.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that flexibility, and you apparently got with the structure and got with the discipline.
Yes, I did. It was great.
And there's a lot to be said for having that ability to do that. It's very important. It gets you through life.
It really does, and it's a lacking skill these days. So
Right. Hello.
it's definitely
Patience for what?
patience, right?
Okay.
But I had the privilege of being one of the first females on the flight line.
Oh, cool.
So there was about 5 of us at the time, and I had a very strong young lady who, granted, I was raised that way, but she pulled the females aside and let them know the guys will try to treat you like a lady, which feels nice, but it will not allow you to learn your job.
Right.
Don't let that happen. And I want to believe that that was not me, but I was so happy for another female taking that initiative to ensure my success.
Right.
And I passed that forward. So it was a great learning experience. Exactly what she said came to pass. So I sat back and I took notes. And when my time came to shine, I was ready.
Good.
And it was great. Yeah. It was a great time.
Good for you. Okay, so how long were you in the service altogether?
Altogether, 28 years.
Oh boy, okay, so you retired.
I retired.
Excellent. So what was your next duty station?
So my next active duty station was Luke Air Force Base, Arizona. Mm-hmm. Sent me there.
What city is that near?
That's right in Glendale, Arizona.
Okay. And how long were you there?
I was there, I finished out my active duty tour. I had 16 months left by the time I finished my leave.
Okay.
So I stayed there and separated from active duty in November.
Right.
But I immediately went into the reserve unit at the same location. Mm-hmm. So I went from one month to the next one. And
so you started your reserve then?
Yes, sir.
Oh, how long had you been on active duty altogether by that time?
4 years.
Oh, you had been?
I did 4 years.
And then you just stayed there and went into the reserve?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's how you finished your military?
That's how I finished my career.
Okay, so now after that, did you go to work somewhere?
Actually, right away, I went to school.
Oh.
And I did worked as a dental receptionist while I was in school, studying computer-aided drafting.
What?
Computer-aided drafting.
Okay.
And design, yeah.
And did the military pay for that?
No, they did not. When I came in, it was that odd little thing where the GI Bill, it was a point in time in the 80s when the GI Bill was suspended, and they had another program, I forget the name of it now, but basically they matched whatever you put aside.
Right, 1-to-1.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I had a little bit put aside, so it helped a little bit, but not to the point of what the GI Bill would have done
Okay.
for me had that been in place
Right.
for my enlistment.
Okay, so you went to school for,
I went to school computer-aided drafting and design.
and what did you do with that?
I actually, after I left Arizona, I left there and went back home. My father was ill. So
Where's home again?
home is Baltimore.
Right.
And I went home for the holidays and found out that he was ill. So I stayed, and I a high school friend of mine, her father got me an interview, and I went into civil engineering and design, drafting.
Right. Okay.
And I did that for a little over a year.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my father passed away after a few months, and I saved up the money and moved back to Arizona.
Okay. All right. So then, when you got back there, then did you attend reserve while you were in Baltimore?
I did. I was at Andrews Air Force Base.
Oh, okay, cool.
I was with the 459th.
So you continued.
I continued.
All right.
I took I'd say about a 9-month break. I went ARPC, as they say, for about 9 months, and then when my 2-year inactive enlistment expired, I re-enlisted at Andrews.
Okay. All right.
That's when at that point was when I cross-trained into the analysis career field. And that's where I found my passion.
Okay, and what is it comprised of?
Well, a maintenance analysis, what I would do is we would track the maintenance done on the aircraft. Again, I've done the C-40s, was at Andrews at the time, but mostly I did fighters. And
C-40s.
yes.
Is that as large as a Hercules? C-130? Or smaller?
I think it might be a little smaller.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've actually seen one up close.
Okay.
But I live with the 30s, and the 30s seem so huge to me now. So.
Right.
But yeah, I did that for a little bit. That was a new thing for me because again, I'd been on fighters. So did that for about a year, like I said, about a year and a half until I saved up to move back to Arizona.
Okay.
Still in the analysis career field. Oh, and to get back to your question, basically I was responsible for analyzing data and developing metrics for supply, for maintenance, for personnel, and doing forecast so they could plan for future flying missions and so forth.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you went back to Arizona.
Back to Arizona.
And did you finish a degree in that?
Yes, I finished my associate's degree
In
in computer-aided drafting and design.
right.
Yes.
Did you work in that field?
Just for that moment, I never actually got to work in computer-aided drafting and design. The engineering company, civil engineering company I went to work for,
Yeah.
hired me for two reasons. One, I had the degree,
Right.
and two, I had a security clearance.
Okay.
But when they got the contracts that they used to entice me to sign on with them, they sent seasoned drafters and architects to school to get the degree and had them make application for security clearances while I sat at a board and continued drafting.
Okay.
Yeah. Another coworker, a friend of my friend's father, informed me of that going on. I approached my supervisor and he said, "Oh, I didn't know you were interested in that." The next day I dropped my resignation.
Okay.
One thing I learned, the military taught me, was that as much as I love my job, I was committed to that contract. So it wasn't something I could get up and walk away from.
Right.
So it instilled in me not only to do a good job and to adapt, but also if I have the opportunity and I'm not happy,
Right.
to walk away and find something that would make me happy. And that lesson alone has put me in this chair today, in this location, because those choices have enriched my life beyond belief, both personally and professionally.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Good for you. Okay, so you now you're a civilian,
I'm a civilian.
but you're also in the reserve.
In the reserve.
So you're doing your once a month duty on a weekend,
1 week in a month.
and then you're doing your 2 weeks a year. Okay, so you started that after 4 years. So for the next 24 years, where did you travel? Okay, and otherwise, how did those weekends go?
Well, the weekends were interesting. It's amazing how much you can get done and how much you don't get done on a weekend. 2 days goes very, very quickly.
Right.
But because of my career field, analysis, sadly enough, I didn't get to travel a lot. I went to, of course I had to go to school because I cross-trained. So
Right.
that's when I went to Chanute Air Force Base in Rantoul, Illinois.
Right.
And I was there again during the winter. Me in places in winter.
You'll learn. Well, you're in Florida now, eh?
I'm in Florida now, and it's raining every day.
Right.
Who knew? But yeah, so I went to school there.
20 degrees.
It's not 20 degrees.
Okay.
But I did get the opportunity to go to South Dakota, I believe it was, and I went to Louisiana for a couple TDYs and exercises. And while I was active duty at Torrejon, I was able to go. I went to Turkey several times because we were on the Spanish base. And even though we were fighter units, we weren't actually allowed to practice in their airspace with live ammunition.
Oh.
So we would have to go to Turkey to do live ammunition exercises.
Wow.
So I went there a few times. I actually got stranded in Turkey for 30 days.
Wow.
Darn. The plane broke. What was I to do? I went to Germany.
You enjoy yourself.
I enjoyed myself, right? shopping, you know, go down to the alley.
Poor thing.
Obviously, turkey in the 80s was a lot different in Incirlik than it is today. There were some restrictions because you had to observe local cultures, but
Right.
we could go off base, we could go into Adana, we could do the tourist thing on our time off that a lot of folks can't do now because it's more restricted and it's not as safe, or at least the appearance of safety isn't there.
Right.
That was once there. But I enjoyed that. We did Italy a couple times, and I actually participated in a USAF talent contest at Spangdahlem Air Base, Germany. So that was
Okay.
good. That was a good time.
And what did you produce?
We did a variety act,
Uh-huh.
and we got some poor little airman in our flight to act as a mannequin, and 3 of us ladies danced around him and sang. And we went from base level to regional level up to USAFE level.
Wow.
And took second place. So
Okay.
I'm pretty proud of that.
All right.
Yeah. You want to make your military supervisor upset? Receive TDY orders to the rec center on base. You're right there on base, but you can't go to work.
Oh, Lord.
They were not happy with us
I bet.
until we won. We got the recognition for the AMU. Then they loved us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's always something.
Always something. But oddly enough, I didn't start traveling military-wise until I retired and took the job that I have now.
And what job is that?
Now I work for AMC, headquarters AMC, the GO81 Program Management Office. And GO81 is the maintenance information system for all the military aircraft.
Okay.
And what I do is I go around the bases and I teach the maintainers how to utilize the system to the best advantage.
And that's what you do now?
That's what I do now.
Nice.
And I love it.
So you go around the bases. Where do you go?
Everywhere there is any kind of heavy aircraft.
Where have you been?
I've
Tell
been
me,
to
where have you been?
Ramstein, Hickam, New Jersey. I've been to McGuire, back to Andrews. Was scheduled to go back to Peterson. I actually retired out of Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado.
Okay.
But let's see, where else have I been? Charleston. Been to Alaska, both Elmendorf and Eielson in Alaska. Kadena, Yokota. Yeah.
Where's Kadena?
Kadena is close to Tokyo.
Okay, and Yokota?
Is Okinawa.
Oh, right. Okay. Wow. It's been a long time since I've heard that.
Yeah. So, and I love it because it's still, the best part of my job as an analyst was not necessarily chasing the numbers, but working with the maintainers and educating them on how what they do affected the numbers.
Right.
So I still get to do that. So I always say I could not have crafted a better retirement job from the military for me to retire from at some point in the future. Down the line.
Okay. Okay. How do you feel about the food and everything that you needed, supplies, equipment through the military?
Through the military.
That's active and reserve duty.
Okay. Honestly, let's talk food because I love food. It's just like when you travel, every base
Yeah.
has different levels of food. I mean, I've gone to some places. Basic training, oddly enough, had one of the best cafeterias ever.
Okay.
Andrews has multiple cafeterias, and if you know which one to go to, it's great. If you go to the other one, it's basic. So I find that the cafeterias at bases tend to reflect the community around them.
Okay.
So if the community has good food, you usually get good food in the base cafeterias.
Okay, cool.
I cannot say there was ever a time, and I know there are times now, but there was never a time when I didn't have the equipment I needed to get my job done.
Okay.
Supply is going to be supply. Sometimes things are going to be slower than ever.
Right.
But when it comes to the equipment I needed, once I got to the part, I always had what I needed. I came from, at my time, I always had the support I needed to get my job done. One of the reasons why I chose to not go all the way to 30 was some things I was seeing changing that didn't sit well with me. So I felt, it was time to take my good memories before anything got sour.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ever have any issues? You feel like you ever have had any issues in the military that reflected the fact that you were a female?
I can honestly pinpoint areas where there could have been issues had I allowed them to be.
Okay.
For instance, at my first duty station, as I mentioned, my trainer My first trainer was active, a nice, when I say a sharp black man in uniform,
Right.
that was my first trainer.
Uh-huh.
And visually, I was like, this is my model. In practice, it wasn't so. But it occurred to me why he was assigned as my trainer. I was assigned a new trainer, and it was the complete opposite. And they basically were like, okay, we're gonna go do this, but they would leave without me. So I found myself having to create my own training moments and my own training opportunities. But as a result, it made me a stronger maintainer because I was basically self-taught while observing very good maintainers doing their job.
Okay.
And there are other, things that happen, but again, my mom raised me to not use ever my color or my sex as a crutch.
Cool.
So I basically ignored any situation that could have gone that way. And I found that every single person that I personally came in contact with followed my lead.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but I did see other people, so.
While you were on active duty or while you were on your reserve training, did you ever have any problem keeping in touch with your family?
Nothing that wasn't self-induced. Yeah,
Did you ever get one of those letters from the commander about, hey, you're supposed to call home?
Yes. Yes, I did. Once, just once.
Okay. One was enough, wasn't it?
Once was enough. I made the effort at that point.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm very, to this day,
Uh-huh.
I will say my very best friend in all the world, the planet. I probably have not physically spoken to her before my birthday, that is, for probably 2 years.
Okay.
But we'll pick up the phone and it's like no time has passed, which is the opposite of my mother.
Okay. Overall, how did you get along with officers and your fellow enlisted?
Overall, very well.
Okay.
Overall, very well. I mean, I gained respect through my work ethic.
Uh-huh.
I respected those who I noticed the same work ethic, and those who I didn't, I respected their rank.
Gotcha.
So.
All right. Any casualties in your unit and through that whole 28 year?
I had, one of my dear friends, in fact, unfortunately, the lady who scooped me up in Spain
Right.
with that good wisdom, she actually attempted suicide while we were there.
Wow.
Thank God she was unsuccessful, but that's the closest personal loss I experienced. But we did, when my unit at Luke was bracked, we all were getting...
When it was what?
Bracked.
What is that?
Base realignment enclosures.
Okay.
So that's when they decide, okay, this base is going to close down and we're going to send the people elsewhere.
Oh.
And that's what caused me to leave Arizona and go to Peterson.
Uh-huh.
But they didn't close the unit, they just closed the maintenance group down. So they were trying to get folks incentive flights. And on one of the flights, we lost a member. Don't know whether he panicked, hyperventilated, but he passed out, never regained consciousness during the flight. And that was hard. That was hard because he was a very good person, and you hate to lose someone in the military to a non-military or war conflict related
Engagement,
incident.
yeah.
It's very hard to understand. That was supposed to be a fun flight that ended his life.
Yeah.
But his wife said something very poignant at his service, and that was, don't feel sad and don't feel guilty. He died doing what he always dreamed of doing, so I know even if he was in pain, he was smiling.
Right.
So a little bit better, still hurts, but
Gotcha.
perspective.
Okay. All right. You were never in combat?
No, not active.
No.
I was deployed to during Desert Storm.
Uh-huh.
And I also, when I was at Torrejon, there was an incident that occurred while we were exercising in Turkey.
Okay.
And we were put on alert for it, but we never were called up.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Just a few more questions, I
Sure.
believe. And Yeah, we're good. Well, first of all, tell me two of your most memorable experiences before I get to the last two questions.
Okay. Let's see. Most memorable experiences, well, I'll start with the last one, and that was my incentive flight. That was something that I always, like I said, I couldn't be a pilot because of my eyesight.
Right.
So getting up in an F-16 was a dream I didn't think I would get,
Oh.
but I did. And it was memorable for two reasons. The first, of course, is obviously the flight itself.
Right.
You know, that goes without saying. But what made it really memorable is, and sorry, I was asked impromptu one time to sing the national anthem at a maintenance group event.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point forward, that became my secondary job. And there was a pilot who, whenever he'd see my name on the program, would come to hear me sing. Well, when we bragged, I requested him to fly me. And then the ops clerk sent back that he had already PCS'd. Well, I had sent him a personal email, didn't know why he didn't respond.
Right.
But when I went for my flight brief, he showed up. He flew in specifically to fly me on my incentive flight. And that meant everything to me, because here was this pilot that really I didn't know well. I just saw him from time to time.
Right.
But he had taken the time to find out about me and to gain the respect to me that he actually flew to another base where I was just to take me on a flight.
Okay.
Because I asked for him. So that was definitely my most memorable experience. And after that, honestly, I just have to say 28 years of friendships, of community, of family, of people I met in 1984 at Torrejon Air Base, Spain, that I can pick up the phone and call today if I needed them, and they would be here or wherever I was when I needed. I think that's the most beautiful experience I took away from my time in service.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
About war, no. I've always been pretty firm and clear in that. I will say I gained more knowledge of the political aspects of war versus just the interpersonal conflicts of it. So war, not so much. The military, yes. I came in expecting, and then, oh God, I hate to say this out loud on tape, but I'm going to say it because I've said it all my life. It was much less structured than I was expecting it to be when I came in. It was, as I used to call it, high school on steroids. And sadly, nothing I've seen in all of my years has changed that opinion. I still think it's high school on steroids. And with the latest generation, I kind of think it's grade school on steroids, but that's another story.
Okay. All right.
But it's like everything, you know, you observe, you assess, and you react to get the mission done. And that's what I've always done. So I dealt with who I need to deal with. I worked around it, and somehow, some way along the line, by being honest, I gained respect and support.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last question, how did your service and experiences affect your life?
Wow. I cannot even imagine where it would be. I think I'd still be great, but I think the best thing about my service is that the man who's my son, who's going to be 30 in a few days, would not be here because I met his father while in my service. And if nothing else, that alone is the biggest effect of my life, is having my son in my life.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. I want to thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or anything you feel like you left out?
oh my God, I left so much out.
Oh.
You know, I got a lot of life to live.
I
You know, I
know.
can tell some stories up in here.
Yeah.
But I would say to anybody who's watching this, especially if it's a younger person thinking about joining the service, it's something I say when you're in the service, and you know, I'm sure anybody can attest. Any friend with kids say, "Oh, my child's thinking about joining the service. Would you talk to them?" And my first question is to the parent: are you willing to have your child die for this country? If your answer is no, then send your child to college until they're old enough to make a decision for themselves. You may not agree with leadership, you may not agree with everything that's done, but at the end of the day, you have to love the dream of what this country can be. And if you love that dream and are willing to die or fight for that dream, being in the service, regardless of the branch, is the greatest example of that love, but also will fulfill you in ways you cannot even imagine. You can't. You just can't. It's the best decision I've ever made. And I only intended to do 4 years. I only intended to do 4 years.
I think you're running late.
I'm running a little late. And I'm still doing it because I'm still working in the military.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you for a fabulous interview.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. There.
Now that was fun.
Yes, it was.
Okay, let's start over and see if my answers change.